Everybody, it's Michael from Replica Airguns with another instructional tabletop video. Today we're looking at different types of airgun sights. And as explained with airgun safeties, a lot of this is cross-platform. So what applies with an airgun will apply with a real steel gun in many cases. There are some exceptions, and one exception would be a spring piston airgun. If you're going to put an optical scope or some sort of scope on there, you're probably going to want an airgun rated, spring piston rated scope, because of the type of vibration that the spring induces when you shoot the gun. It's very different than CO2 or compressed air, or of course gunpowder. A much different type of vibration happens, and that can affect certain sights and actually damage them. So if you are using a spring piston airgun, usually rifle, you're going to want a spring piston optical sight for it. We are going to cover all the different sights, but just keep that in mind. So in this video, I'm going to go over the various types of sights that either come as part of the gun design or that can be added afterwards using a rail or mounting system. So let's start with iron sights. These are generally fixed sights built into the gun, but sometimes you can add iron sights onto rails. Let's just take a look at a typical iron sight, and you'll see here we have a post in the front, notch in the back. There aren't any real, dots or any markings on this. You just line it up. So if we can kind of do that for you. Let me get my glasses. Glasses will help. There we go. That's better. A little hard to do it, but you can see you line up the notch in the front with or the post in the front with the notch in the back. These are non-adjustable sights, okay? Very typical on air guns and real steel guns. Now then you've got other sights. You've got basically notch, post notch sights here, iron sights with dots. So you can have like a white dot front and back, okay? And sometimes these will be adjustable. Sometimes this can be adjusted for windage. So windage means left to right, elevation would be up and down. This sight here, sometimes if you have a screw like that, it can be adjustable. It's hard to tell for sure. Sometimes that just puts the sight on the gun and it isn't adjustable. There's fiber optic sights like this one here. We've got a fiber optic in the front and just white dot in the back, right? And this one doesn't look adjustable, but you never can tell for sure. Sometimes they're pressed in and they can be moved left and right. This one would not be adjustable up and down, but you have that fiber optic sight in the front that you line up like that. When you're shooting it, you put basically the target just above it, okay? And then Glocks typically will use sort of a similar white dot on the front with this sort of rectangular sighting system on the back. But now the reason for this is just easier to see. So you can put this on other, like whether it be white dot or this type of rectangular system, it's just easier to see than black. Because if you have a black target and black sights, it's going to be really hard to see. Now, I'm going to show you another sight just for adjustability reasons. This one has a red dot on it, but this is a rear adjustable iron sight. You've got the two screws here, right? And this one would be integrated. It would be part of the gun. And then this red dot would be added later with the rail setup that we'll talk about in a bit here. But you've got the notch on the front, and then you have the post on the front, notch on the back, with adjustability for windage side to side here, and elevation up and down, okay, to help you get that centered on the target. Now with iron sights, you're going to find that they're common on pistols and rifles. Again, built into the gun. With rifles, a lot of times, if they have a rail system, you can add iron sights. Sometimes pop-up iron sights after the fact as well, or you can take the ones that come on the gun off and change them up for something more suitable for your needs. Next, we're going to talk about laser sights. And sometimes they're integrated into the gun. There are some pistols and even rifles that integrate laser sights into the gun. It's kind of part of the frame. But oftentimes you're going to have these rail setup laser systems where, okay, so there's a laser. It's not a red dot, it's a laser. It actually puts a laser dot. It is red, obviously, but it does put a red, or it could be green or different colors, blue. It puts a dot onto the surface of the item that you're shooting at or the object you're shooting at, okay, instead of inside the, I guess, holographic screen or whatever you're using, if it's a red dot or holographic sighting system, which we'll get into in a bit. But this type of system here would just be mounted on the rail of the gun like that, okay? If I got it backwards, it'd be like that. And then you can simply just click it on and off, right? By moving this back and forth. And you can turn it on and off, okay? And so that would be mounted on the rail system here. So your gun would have to have a Picatinny, right, rail system like this, or Weaver rail setup in order to do that. Sometimes they'll mount on the sides of guns. If you wanted to, you could put a red dot or laser on the side like this, right? All depends on the mounting system, the rail system on the gun you're using. And again, you're going to find laser setups common on both rifles and pistols. Next, we're going to talk about a red dot sight, and that would be something like this right here, okay? And we're going to pop that off. I don't actually have a battery in it, but you can't. There'd be a little red dot here. I'll put something on the screen just to represent what I'm talking about here. But this is a red dot, and this is a fairly large one. It's using a rail setup. So this is a rail setup that allows you to go over the slide, because what's going to happen is the slide moves back and forth. So it's hard to put a red dot on a pistol slide because it moves back and forth, shakes around a lot, can be very damaging to most red dots. Now there are some red dots that are designed to be integrated or put onto the back of the slide on guns, and they're more durable. They're designed for that sort of impact and racking back and forth of the slide, but most red dots are going to be needed to be set up on a rail like this, okay? Or in the case of like a Desert Eagle, right? So this one, on a Desert Eagle, only the back half of the slide moves, so you can actually mount on the rail system a red dot. This is another large one, but you can put a red dot on the front of if only the back half of the slide moves, then that would work too, right? So if the whole slide's moving, you're going to need very specific, very compact, lightweight red dots for that type of setup. Now here we have another red dot just put right onto a rifle rail, right, the top rail. It's just a red dot, and that's what you're going to find a lot on things like ARs. You know, close quarter shooting are going to use red dots because they're not magnified. You don't need generally a magnified scope on a red dot, because for close quarter shooting, it's something you're not just going to need too much. Now, if you are shooting further out and you do want to include, sorry, I'm moving my stuff around here, a red dot with something that's magnified, you can go with something like this. So if I pull that out of the way, I've got my red dot, but if I want to magnify it, I just push this in, slide that over, and this gives me, I believe, a 3 times optical magnification. So that's kind of neat. You can have that kind of a setup, a red dot with magnified optical. Now this isn't so much a scope, it's just a magnifier for the red dot. Now with holographic and red dot sights, it does use mirrors and light to put a dot on the sight. This is a more advanced sighting system. It's a holographic system similar to the red dot, but it puts more of a pattern on there, more of like the crosshairs type idea that gives you just more of, you know, a viewing picture of what you're shooting at. And these are common too, and they're very similar to red dots, basically another holographic type sight. One thing I forgot to mention with the iron sights is the peep sight. So I'm going to come back to that just for a second. So you have, with the iron sights, you're going to have posts on the front typically, like this one here, notch on the back, but you can have peep sights, and peep sights are oftentimes used on rifles. You can have a smaller peep sight there, right? Or you can have a larger seat, and that's basically called the aperture. So if you're shooting quicker and you want a larger target to see, visualize, you use the larger hole. If you're shooting out further ranges, you want more accuracy, use the smaller peep there. And these can be very accurate, especially with rifles, as an alternative to a magnified scope. Some people swear by them and say that they can shoot with a peep sight even better than with a scope at, say, 100 yards. I guess you'd have to be very experienced using a peep sight to be able to do that, but that is generally an option. All right, last but not least, I don't have it on a gun because I don't have a rifle here with an optical scope on it in front of me, but here's an optical scope. And so this is basically your magnified optical scope. I believe this one is a 3 by, what is it? It's a 4 by 32. So 4 times power by 32 is basically the size or the width of the scope. It gives you the viewing diameter is at 32. And sometimes these can be different. Well, oftentimes they're going to be different powers, 3 power, 2 power, 4 power. Some of them will go up even higher. Some of them are adjustable. You can adjust the powers from, anywhere from 3 to 6 or even higher. And these are basically used on rifles, sometimes on pistols, but most often on rifles, especially if you're going to be shooting, out at distances of 100 yards or more or closer. But they do allow you to see what you're shooting at much closer and get a better idea of where you're shooting it, especially if it's at a further range, because it is magnified. Okay, this just happens to have a little cover on it, but they generally have these crosshairs in them. You're not going to be able to see the other side there, it's just too close, but they'll usually have a crosshair system like that in them, and those will be, installed on rifles. You can mix and match them and figure out which one you want to use for the rifle and the distance you're shooting at. All right, I hope that gives you a good idea of some different types of airgun sight systems out there and what they're most commonly used on, what types of guns, pistols, rifles they're used on. Also keep in mind we have a lot of these products I'm showing you here today in our Canada and US online replica airgun store over at replicairguns.ca for Canada and replicairguns.us for the US, where we sell air guns, BB guns, airsoft guns, pellet guns, blank guns, and other accessories. Also check out replicairguns.com, where I post my articles and reviews. Sometimes you'll find some additional information there that I may have missed in the video, so check it out. Usually there's pictures and all kinds of stuff there for you. All right, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, take care.